Gentlemen, my name is SP and I am from betterpodcasting.com, which is on the GonnaGeek.com podcast network. And what I've got today is the continuation of an edit of my podcast, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, which was streamed about a week and a half ago. And I'm using Movie Studio 15.0 Platinum, which is a Magix, Sony Magix property. And what I have been doing is just a walkthrough of the edit. So you get to see me as I edit and you get to see what I'm doing, and I will explain things as I go. This, I have to tell a secret. The last video I did, I kind of didn't do the next video, which was the next, I don't know, what is this, 6 minutes or so of the podcast, which is basically the intro piece of the show. So we're going to pick it up where I stopped it, which is at the first little start break into the podcast itself. A little background into what this is. This is a podcast on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, originally focused on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, we're in a big hiatus following season 5 into season 6. So we've got quite a bit of time on our hands. And what we've been doing lately is going over the Punisher. So if you haven't seen the Punisher yet, I'm sorry that you're going to be really spoiled in this next little bit, because we're going to talk all about, I believe it's up for episode 4 of the Punisher in this particular show. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and you get to see how things go as I edit. If you want to go back and take a look at all the effects that I have, the audio effects I have on each track, or why I have it set up, go to the last video. You'll be able to see all of that. Well, in the meantime, I'm just going to get going because I got to get this edited tonight. Should be back next week. All right, ladies, let's get into the Punisher. So what I can do here, and I'm going to do it here, is there was a flub in the live recording where I couldn't get the actual bump to play, and then I forgot to transition scenes in the OBS recording of it. So I've got this little gap here, and what I've done is I've inserted my static image, which I use when I'm playing the bumps, and I've inserted it there, and then it basically fades out into the actual bump. Should be fading out. Do that. I do a half a second fade out, which, since I'm at 15 frames a second, half a second is actually 15 seconds, or 0.15. So that's 15 frames. It's half a second. So there we go. That's the fade out. And I do that so that it's not as abrupt on your eyes. And as it turns out, there's not much difference in the tone, but there's enough that I wanted to actually differentiate the two. And also, I could have gone all the way out to the end of the bump and extended that out, but I just didn't this time. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to cut everything and just bring that in closer. Because why not? I don't have to do any fade because it's the exact same thing up here. Oh, but before I do that, I am going to make sure that that is disabled resample on the switches. For some reason, it just doesn't work all that great. All right, so I'm going to click down here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over here, do the same thing. And I'm going to select all these by using the Shift key and then using the left button on my mouse and just dragging it down. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go way out. And do kind of the same thing. Shift key is down as I'm going all the way up. And I'm going to go back in just to make sure that there's no stragglers here. No, those are full tracks. And then I'm just going to butt it in. Now, if I had to actually crossfade it in, I would crossfade it in like that, but I don't, because the image is the same and there is no noise or shouldn't be any noise whatsoever. And what I've just done is I've gotten rid of that silence. All right, ladies, let's get into The Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called... Somebody was coughing or something, so let's see what's going on. Pay attention to these volume meters, output meters on the left. I am speaking on this track here. If you see any volume meters peak before or while I'm talking, that needs to get out. I'm thinking it's going to come from Lauren or Haley, so one of these down here. And I'm just going to move the soundboard track down here. I just left-clicked on the mouse and then dragged it down. The Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes air. Okay. I've identified it was Haley's track. So we're just going to go with it. The Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13... This might be an audio fix. 4 called Resupply. We'll see. I'm not going to fix it here because you can see my mouth moving, but in the audio version later, I will fix that. Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes aired on Netflix on November 17th, 2017, which is still less than a year ago. We're doing pretty good. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes aired on Netflix on November 17th, 2017, which is still less than a year ago. We're doing pretty good. Season 2 is set to air in 2019. It is still 2018, so I think we're still doing good. Haley, who directed this episode?
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund. She has 55 directing credits starting in 1994. Those credits include a single episode of La Femme Nikita, Riverworld, the TV movie, an episode of Boardwalk, an episode of The Killing, 2 episodes of Under the Dome, 1 episode of Longmire, 1 of Copper, 1 episode of Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, 2 episodes of Vikings, 3 of Sons of Liberty, 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, 1 of House of Cards, 1 of The Americans, 2 of The Walking Dead, 5 of The Handmaid's Tale, and this episode of The Punisher.
Lauren, who wrote this episode?
This episode was written by Dario.
Oh, I heard her again. I think this is Haley because Lauren is talking. This episode.
This episode was written by Dario.
Definitely see that that output meter moving. And we're just going to delete the part of her track by selecting the track. And then when the cursor is there, do a split. And then I'm going to use this trim start. That just gets rid of her track right there. Everything else stays in place.
Dead, 5 of The Handmaid's Tale, and this episode of The Punisher.
Lauren, who wrote this episode?
This episode was written by Dario Scardapane.
This episode.
This episode was written by Dario Scardapane.
Okay. I'm going to play this a couple of times. You might get bored of me playing it, but you're going to hear a tick in the middle of there.
This episode was written by Dario Scardapane.
It was actually in here. Let's see if you can pick it out.
This episode was written by...
It's right when she's saying episode, click.
This episode was written by Dario.
There's not much I can do about it here.
This episode was written... Episode was...
Oh, no. What happened here is I've just taken Movie Studio into a tailspin, and this will not end well. So what I'm going to have to do, this is important for the knowledge of what's going on. Sometimes you just have too many effects going, and I start and stop too fast, and Movie Studio hangs up like this. And it's a quirk in the system. And I've learned that the best thing to do is just to shut down and go. Now, in another occasion, what I would do is I would let it go for a while. I would let it autosave, and then I would shut down the program, and then I would come back and get the autosave later. Because while it's doing this, it will actually autosave in like 10, 15 minutes, something like that. I'm not going to do that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end this stream, and I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to reload everything, and I'm going to start at the exact same time because I did not save this yet. Fortunately, I'm only going to lose maybe 2 minutes of work. And this is the frustrating part of using audio editors that hang up. I don't know specifically what's going on here. This would be a good video to send to Magix to say, hey, what up with this? And hopefully they'd be able to start debugging the system for this particular thing. So I might actually send them a note once I upload this to YouTube. Anyway, thank you very much for checking this out. If you have any questions for me, you can get me on Twitter at Stargate Pioneer. You can also email me, stargatepioneer@gonnageek.com, or you can leave a comment down below if this is the YouTube version of the video, and I will go ahead and get back to you as soon as I can. But the joys of live walkthrough editing. Okay, guys, thanks. I will be right back if you're live with the restart of this edit.